Howdy folks, welcome back to Shallow Pockets Acres. We're up here in the parking area here on the standing stone. It's right in here below the shoulder. Below Jack's knob shoulder, I think. And then in here, where the parking area is state game lands. And then the white marks on the trees are where the Rothrock State Forest starts above the game lands here. And then right here at the boundary is where the trail goes back through the shoulder. And that's a double blaze here going off to the left. And we got the game land sign, or I'm guessing there on the tree marking the border there between the game lands and the state forest. So technically, if you come up here and spend a night overnight, you can't sleep in your vehicle on state game lands. It's not state forest ground. But if you go on up there to that turn where it's turning to the left, I think there's a gate in the road there that is on the state forest. So if you was overnight and you could sleep there, or you go on up to the towers and sleep in your vehicle. But that's not allowed on state game lands for those who are interested in knowing that. And I'm simply going to walk on up the road a little further, because where the rocks are piled up along the road up here, I'll show, is how they hauled in the material to the shoulder up here. And it's a little shorter walk. This meanders back through and hooks up to the right. Where on up here, it's just straight back in, pretty much. And I can remember them putting this in, and then they put the rocks out here along the road once they got finished with it. And I don't remember what year they did that. But those rocks there that are piled up right on is the road that goes right back to the shoulder here. If you're up here in the dark and don't want to walk as far, come up to where these rocks are piled up. And this will take you back into the shoulder also. The road's up here actually. And the path straight back into it's up above those rocks, not the one in below them. In below them, they just pushed a water break. And there's the trail along with whether you can make out the shoulder there or not, but the trail goes down through the woods here is marked. And there ain't much difference whether you walk on up the road or just do a little hook around to stay on the trail. And perimeter shelter back here in the middle of the woods on what used to be the part of the Butler farm I field. And here's the inside of the shelter here at Butler Knob. Butler Knob Adirondack lean-to shelter. And then the Standing Stone Trail was Trail of the Year in 2016. And then we got the Trail Registry book there. I don't know. This is probably like 8 foot deep, maybe 10. And then a little 3 foot overhang off the front of it. And then some rocks. It steps up into it, which may keep the snakes out of it. And your picnic table outside, along with a fire pit area, which I don't think you'd be allowed to use that today, which is April 15th. And there is no privy here to use. They've got a sign here on the back side of it for the cat hole area. And I myself, being from this area, I'd rather sleep in my vehicle, but if you're here hiking through over the winter, late fall, early spring, it might not be too bad to sleep inside this, but watch out for rattlesnakes and copperheads if you do want to spend a night in this shelter, because this mountain does have both of them on it in plenty of numbers. You might wake up with one sleeping next to you up here. And then you got a sign here to where you get your walk, go that way, which is right back to the parking area to get your water. And then also back here behind you got a bear pole to hang your bags, because there are bears in this area. And then there's blue lines over there on the trees. It's private ground, I guess, right back through there. And I don't understand this part of Rothrock State Forest, but it's not It's an isolated piece of it that they've game commission or state bought. I don't have an idea what time, but it was before 24, before the fire tower was put up on Butler Knob, and it's just an oddball piece of Rothrock State Forest. Okay, we're up here on Butler Knob now, and I've since found this since my last trip up here. I'll try to get that big where anybody wants to pause the video and read it. Survey marker number 2, Butler Knob stamped in it. And then right here beside it is another piece of concrete, 3x3 or something with a round hole in the top. And weeds growing up over it. I think this was part of the cistern system, because there used to be a cabin that the rangers or whoever, forestry guys, whoever manned the tower stayed in the cabin. And it was right in there where that dirt pile, or right behind where that dirt pile is. And I'm thinking there's another marker kind of like that one, but it gives the altitude, how high the point was over and around there, and that dirt pile might be on it, might not be on it. And it may have got buried when they pushed that dirt pile up. But and now that I'm remembering that and seeing that one being on a concrete foundation, let me look around here a little more, because also you go back past the right hand side where there's an opening in that pine tree that fell over on the Standing Stone Trail. And then if you can see over there in it, there are orange markers on the tree where there's another viewing area out to the left, back in behind the fire tower. And that's where the sign marking Butler Knob is located. And all I'm seeing laying in here is just rocks. And I can't remember exactly where the old shelter or cabin or whatever you want to call it that the Forestry Service stayed in actually sat. But there was a cistern in the bottom of that cabin is where the cistern water was stored. And at some point in time, the state decided they wanted to get rid of the cabin because of that cistern system being in the basement of it. They didn't want somebody to end up breaking into it and falling in there and drowning. So they leveled it and got rid of that part up here, which probably wasn't a bad idea because they did vandalize the fire tower, as I've shown in the past. And I mean, even the roof's falling off of it anymore, rotting out. And I will walk over here to this other lookout while I'm here today, because we are early enough yet in the year where you can see a little bit. But I don't understand who put the sign over here versus over at the other point, or what the logic was behind putting the sign over here marking Butler Knob. the sign for Butler Knob, and with the elevation on it's over here. And maybe this is no, this has got to be a little bit lower than that other surveyor. But from here, you can see out through the valleys, and the trail goes on down past in zigs and zags. And you can see a little bit throughout the valley when the leaves are off from it, but once summer gets here, there's no view to talk about over here at all. And I ain't sure how far down and whether things open up, because kind of like a clearing out through that way, and that might be down around Charlottesburg area, but this trail simply goes to the left here, then zigs back to the right, and I think to the left again. Then you simply got to turn around and come back up it, and I'm not really interested in climbing back up the hill today. And this is a view of the mountaintop coming down off of our development road. And then out this way is the rocks on Butler Point, Butler Knob up there. Right across the mountain from the development where my cabin is. Just thought I'd get a little footage of right across the mountaintop here, coming down. Back the other way from Butler Knob. With the rocks up there on the point in the background is Butler Knob. Coming back down from Butler Knob, you've got a four-wheeler trail that they've got blocked off, and then a gate here, which goes back to, there's at least 2 Butler Fields back through there. And if you are up in here in the fall and have an interest in chestnuts, I can't say that they're American chestnuts, but they might be. The one field has chestnuts planted along the edge, and there's some chestnuts growing in the woods around those fields. And they may be actual American chestnuts, they may be an early hybrid. That's more than information I have, but and then as you come on down the road, there's an old snowmobile ramp that's been there since the 60s, I'm going to say. And then there's a gate in behind it, which leads you up across the mountain that way, out through several fields. And here we are at the Butler Fields, the old snowmobile ramp here. We're going to walk back here to the pond and maybe on up through a little bit. And hopefully I can see into the water today. I came up here a week or so ago and the sun was out and too much glare to see in the water to see if the goldfish and the native brook trout are still in there or not. And while I'm up here, I've said about doing this other thing for years, is checking around the fruit trees up here for morel mushrooms, and I did find a few of them the other day, so we'll probably walk around a few of the trees up here that have the flower blossoms on them, because there's some plum and apple and pear planted throughout these fields. I really think the stream coming down through there, which there ain't any water in it, is this spring for the standing stone trail off the road. And I think that's that watershed, which this pond is from a different spring up on the other end of it. And now it looks like the apple trees, and I don't know whether it's apple trees they have planted out through there, but they got pines planted in there where that used to be filled when I was a kid, and we used to come up in here walking around. And right now the water's kind of got a murky look to it. Really don't see anything in there. So whether the goldfish and trout are still in this pond, I don't know. But there's definitely some weeds in it. And can't really see in the water. And at some point they planted an apple right in here along this. It's out in blossom, and along with the pine tree, and then another, some type of flower. That might be another wild sweet crab apple or something of that nature. And then we got some little flowers growing here too that they're about done with for the spring. I want to walk on up here to this bigger apple tree and see if there might be a few morels under it. Well, I don't want to get in here too deep and wind up with a tick attached to me either. And I'm not going to spend too long looking for morels. I move too fast for most people looking for morel mushrooms. But if I'm not seeing them, I simply move on. And here's another old apple tree. And back in the 70s and 80s, there were several apple trees planted throughout these fields, which this down in here has been left to grow up pretty much. And they may have stuck a few newer apples in there the way things look. but I'm not interested in walking down through that stuff looking today. And here's a pipe for another spring or water system that's on this place, and that's been in there at least since the 70s, because I don't think they've really done much up in here other than they do cut the fields every now and then. But and then this field here still has two big pear trees. It's been there for only God knows how long. And then it looks like there may be a few apples, but they're not the old ones. It was here in the 70s. I walked up through here as a kid. It looks like there might be over there in the woods or something. Maybe some of the older ones, but that one that's blooming down there in the fields, it's got to be something they planted recently. And I want to go up here and look around these pear trees before I go today. And that apple there could be one that's been in there for close to 100 years. As I'd say, both of these pears, if they ain't been there 100 years, they've probably been in there over 100 years, because they were big trees in the 70s even. And also on this side of the road here, up here past these two big pears on the right, Daddy always said it was a chicken coop, but there was glass back in the woods in that area there, before that next little field that's in behind there. Because I always ask questions, where was the house up here? And I don't know of anybody that can tell. I know there ain't anybody living now that could tell you where the house, because I've heard there's one house or there's two houses on the Butler farm here. And there's nobody living today that can tell you how many houses was on this place. But there was remnants of something. Well, there was a house, a chicken coop, there was glass that laid back in there in the 70s, and it wasn't a dump or anything like that. It was a building that fell down, and the windows out of whatever it was laying there. Quick little scan around that tree and walk over here to this other one and look around under it a little bit. And this is also another one of them areas that in the 60s and even into the 70s, I think, they did plant this for the wildlife at times. Which it hasn't been planted for years now, other than they may have come up and mowed it and maybe cut some hay or something like that, but a lot of it's just been left to go. Right back in here, another opening there for another field in back there. Somewhere in here there was a building of some type, and Daddy always said it was a chicken coop from the Butler farm. Kind of got an overgrown field back in there where that opening is. And this used to go up through here. Field, a 10-yard patch of woods, maybe 20-yard patch of woods, and then another field each way. And I don't know if it's still like that or whether they actually did plant pines everywhere. And I don't know if that's chronic wasting disease or somebody shot a deer and it just died there and rotted away this past winter or what. You have that patch of woods and another field in here behind. And there used to be a field back in that way, but it looks like it's all overgrown. And we got another overgrown field here. It used to be a decent field. They need to brush hog it. Chestnut tree in here somewhere. That must be it right there. The old chestnut burrs laying here right along the road. It looks like something's been into them here fairly recently, or anybody that knows their chestnuts, is that possibly an actual American chestnut, or I don't know how you identify the Chinese varieties from the American varieties by the bark, or maybe we'll have to take a walk up in here once leaves get on that tree and look at it again. And you pop out into another field here off to the left, and then another field off to the right. I kind of think there's another set of fields through this patch of pines. It's a wonder the Game Commission hasn't had these pines cut. And you have another set of fields here. And another group of pines that goes through. And then the last two fields that are up here, I think. And since I'm already to the top, I'm going to walk out here to the edge and peer down over, see if I can see anything out here, or whether it's all just wooded and below. Because I do believe back in the day, this was a road to travel from Hill Valley to Harris Valley. Okay, right there is the game land boundary. Which the game lands, I think, were bought in 69, 68 or 69, somewhere in that time frame. Maybe 70 even. And then this would be the road that goes down like to the Canosa Sawmill in Harris Valley, I think. Yeah, growing up and all, what I walked through there was a four-wheeler trail, and I know that I'm pretty sure it's Canosa Sawmill in Harris Valley where this goes down over into. And I'm also pretty sure that when it was still the Butler farm, there was a road. Well, I know the road's here, you can see it. And then you got your rock pile out that way for a fence or something. Maybe to keep the cows in. Yeah. Those familiar with the area, I'm pretty sure that is Canosa Sawmill, the newer, whether it's pig farm or chicken farm, they have the buildings in there, where this road goes down in behind there in Harris Valley. And then out around this way, I can't say for sure where this road goes on out across the top of the mountain, but this may have been an old sawmill road out across the top of the mountain that was in here way before I was born and everything else. But there's a definite road that goes on out across, out through the woods there. That's off of state game lands. The game land markers, the lines painted back here behind this. And this here that I walked out, I feel was probably an old road too, before it was game lands, that the Butler family and others used to traverse from Harris Valley to Hill Valley. And then once the state took over the Butler farm, they come in and planted the pines. And I don't know whether this was all fields when it was part of the Butler farm, or whether they cut all this and turned part of it into fields. But it does look like they've cut down on the four-wheeler activity up through here anyhow, compared to when I was growing up. And I ain't sure whether it was right along in here in these pines or whether it's the next set down. I did run into a rattlesnake one time, laying right in at the base of one of the pine trees up there. And I do believe part of this was some type of game preserve at one time, and I can remember them planting corn and different things up here and leaving it stand for the wildlife. But yeah, if they're going to do anything with these pines, they need to have a logger come in and cut them and then replant new ones or do something with them, because they're falling out into all the fields now. This used to be mowed up nice. That's the way I remember it as a kid. All these fields were mowed up nice. Well, the pine trees were a whole lot smaller, and they didn't leave shit laying in the fields like they are now. You can see right there looks like one of the old apple trees still living. And possibly even that next one that's stretched out towards the field might be an apple tree, just don't have any blossoms on it. But I can remember coming up through here with my daddy at times when he was hunting, and everywhere you looked at along these fields, both sides, there was a big guy in orange in there standing hunting. Which, that tradition has gone away. And that chestnut there is just starting to leaf out. Same as mine are on my grind.